Okay, Be'ezat Hashem, Na'aseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to the Lighthouse project as we continue our study of Megilat Esther, as we continue the series of Megilat Esther Revealed. And we've done several classes. We've done one about the king, the queen, the villain, the hero. Tonight, we're going to get to know the Jews of Shushan. Before we get started, I'd like to give an honorable mention to an anonymous sponsor, doing this in honor of Gedalia Fenster with Hakarat Tov for his inspiration, for the zivug of Rochel Esther Bat Leah Rezel, and the zivug Parnasa and Refuah of Abraham Shlomo Ben Leah Rezel. Also, this is being done in memory of Feiga Bat Shlomo Zichronah Livracha, and for the Refuah Shalma Menachem Mendel and Sarah Batya. This particular class, Baruch Hashem, has its own sponsors. We have the Issachar and Zvulun sponsorship, H&M Builders, doing this in memory of their grandfather, in honor of the Dornbush family. Be'ezat Hashem, that the Dornbush family have continued success, health, wealth, happiness, bracha v'atzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem, v'bsorot tovot. And we have an additional sponsor. This one is a new one, Natanya Azran, who's doing this in honor of her husband, Avraham ben Batya, for continued inspiration in his learning and parnasah. If it's who I think it is, and even if it's not, Be'ezat Hashem, that Avraham ben Batya, you have an incredible amount of success in your teshuvah process, and that you go higher and higher in your learning, and you have bracha and tzlacha in all that you do, and you be matzliach, and Be'ezat Hashem, that your parnasah will be so easy. You'll be learning more hours and working less hours, and Be'ezat Hashem bimhera, bimhera, bimhera. This should also be to the Yeshua of Moshe ben Rosa. Okay, let's get started. And this should be to that tzachah for all the people in the room. That on a cold night in Florida, they got into their car, they drove down here, and they're now learning Torah. In the frigid weather, it's 68. The Be'ezat Hashem give you all your heart's desires. Tonight happens to be Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh Adar, which means the time has come to sing. Mishe, 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 Nichnas Adar. Marbi, 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 Marbim Besimcha. Mishe, Nichnas Adar, Marbim Besimcha. Mishe, Nichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. It's the song that never ends and ends. It goes and goes and never ends. Okay, let's get started. It's a very, very special day. Rosh Chodesh of Adar Bet. We have 60 days of simcha, days of happiness, days of atzlacha. Plant your seeds, ladies and gentlemen. Plant your seeds. Plant your seeds for the future. If you have a thought, if you have a kavanah, anything that you need in your life as a Yeshua, put it in Adar. Plant it. Start something. Write something about it. Email something about it. Speak to somebody about it. Give it life. Give it birth on this particular month. It's the best advice I can give you on this Rosh Chodesh Adar. Let's begin. Megilat Esther Revealed. So like we said, we took a closer look at the main characters of the story, the king, the queen, the villain, and the hero. However, there's a large body of people who represents a great part of the story. They're also another main character of the story, if not the main character of the story. It's the Jew, the simple Jew, or the Jews of Shushan. And the time has come to get to know the Jews of Shushan. It's very unique. It's like a blank face. It's like you see a silhouette. Who are they? You can almost imagine Mordechai. You can almost imagine Esther. You can almost imagine Achashverosh and even Haman. But who's the Jew of Shushan? It's all like these blank little silhouettes and we don't know what they look like. We can't even put a feeling to them. Tonight we'll try to connect to them. And we'll try to see how different are they from us today. What is the difference between the Jew from 2,400 years ago than from the Jew today? Now, the Jew from 2,400 years ago, the Jews of Shushan, our ancestors from over 2 millennia ago, how are they? Are they like us? Are we in a vicious cycle that is constantly repeating itself? Or did we learn from their mistakes? Are we that evolution of generation after generation after generation that evolved and improved, learning from the previous generation to the incredible generation of 5,779 of today? Are we an evolution of that generation of Purim, of that story of Esther? Tonight we're going to analyze maybe the most complex character of the story of Megilat Esther, the ordinary Jew, the plain Jew, the regular Jew. How unique and how different is he, and how important is he to the story today? In order to do that, we have to zoom into the era of Shushan, the era of the Jews in Shushan. And just to give you a timeline, to grasp the spiritual status of Am Yisrael, where are we in history? So basically, we're in 3,338 from from Bereshit. And what is this date? It's also 422 BCE. Again, about 2,400, 2,500 years ago. And it's the destruction of the first temple. Tisha B'Av. We all know Tisha B'Av, right? So that's where we're at right now. And the Jews got exiled to Bavel. Okay, this is Galut Bavel, the Babylonian exile. And this exile is a 70-year period. So between the building of the first Bet HaMikdash and the second Bet HaMikdash, there's a 70-year period. And that's where the story is happening. Now, about 47 years after Tisha B'Av is the famous feast of Achashverosh in Shushan. And about 23 years later, we have the story of the ending of the story of Purim and Mordechai and Esther, and the second temple is completed 70 years later after destruction. So in other words, we have the destruction, the story of Purim happening about 47 years later, and at the completion of 70 years, we already have the return of the Jews to Israel as well as the rebuilding of the second Bet HaMikdash. Okay. During this time, when the Jews are in between Bet HaMikdash HaRishon and Bet HaMikdash HaSheni, you should know that the relationship with God was terrible. There was a Hester Panim. God turned his face. He's not looking at the Jews anymore. A Hester Panim. There was no connection. The relationship was on the rocks.
What's the reason?
Huh?
The reason.
Well, we'll get there. Hashem is completely distant from Am Yisrael, and by the way, vice versa. So was Am Yisrael. They weren't very close to their Creator. And there was a very big disconnect between Jews and God. To your question, there's an important fact. What happened? What happened? What happened to this beautiful relationship? Keep in mind, if there's a Bet HaMikdash, that means that there's unity. That means that there's peace, and that God's holy presence, the Shekhinah, is amongst us. It's there. It's living with us. It's a whole different world when the Shekhinah is in this world. It's a whole different world. The whole different feeling, a whole different behavior from nature to human beings to the world, Jews, Gentiles. It's a whole different world when the Shekhinah, when God's holy presence is in this world, resting itself or residing in Bet HaMikdash. So now, the reason how we got into this situation that the Jews don't have a Bet HaMikdash and they're in this exile for 70 years is that the first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of 3 reasons. The Jewish people did the biggest 3 sins that are unforgivable. They are called Yehareg V'Bal Ya'avor. It's better that you get killed or die rather than transgress these 3 mitzvot, or these 3 sins, which are what? They're Avodah Zarah, idol worship. Second one is Gilui Arayot, promiscuity, indecency. Hashem hates Zima. You should know it's one of the things that Hashem can't stand as an individual or as a nation. And the third thing is shfichut damim, murder. So to recap, the three things that pushed God away from the Jewish nation was idol worship, indecency and promiscuity, and murder. Now, the Jews are no longer on their land. Right now they are exiled. Gentiles have taken over Jerusalem and the land of Israel. They find themselves exiled to Bavel, to Persia. They are living right now in the capital of Shushan. Not exactly the ideal scenario for a Jew. And we are introduced to them in the Megillah. And we have an introduction to the exiled Jew. And the first opening scene, when the curtain opens up and you take a look, oh, the Jew, after the destruction of Bet HaMikdash and after 47 years in exile, what do we see them? They're in a party. They're in a feast. They are living it up. They're in the king's feast. They're partying it up in Achashverosh's castle. As it says in the Megillah, בימים ההם כשבט המלך אחשוורוש על כיסא מלכותו אשר בשושן הבירה, when the king Achashverosh was sitting on his throne in the capital of Shushan, עשה משתה לכל שריו ועבדיו. He did a big feast to all his servants, to all his constituents. בהראותו את עושר כבודו מלכותו ותייקר תפארת גדולתו. He wanted to show his riches, he wanted to show his greatness, he wanted to show how big he is and how successful he is after he just became a very successful war general that became now a king. Yamim Rabbi, many days they celebrated. 80 u'me'at yom, 180 days of food and drinking. 6 months. 6 months was the party of Achashverosh. Ubimnot ha'yamim ha'ele, and when 6 months of partying are up, Asa melech lechol ha'am nimtzaim b'Shushan HaBira. He did a special party for those that are living in Shushan HaBira. Lemigadol v'ad katan mishteh. All ages are welcome. Shivat Yamim, 7-day period. So the question goes, did you not have enough? You just partied for 6 days. You needed that extra week? What's that extra week about? The extra week is that this evil anti-Semite, Achashverosh, who was known to be more of a Jew hater than Haman, says, this 7 days is for the Jews. I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them. Why did he do that? He says that the Midrash says that the 7-day party was maliciously designed to trap the Jews into angering God further, more than what he already was angry at the Jewish people. He says, let's take it to a next level, completely. Because keep in mind, what's the Jew about? Unity. What does Achashverosh and Haman want? Dispersion. They want to be divided. So the more they're divided, the more they're disconnected from Judaism, the more that Amalek is winning, the more that Achashverosh is going to win. So they wanted to double up. And the way that they did this, the way that they chose to distance them even more during this imposed exile, it says, how did they distance the Jews further from God? Vashtiya chadat enones, 7-day party, come and drink and eat as you please. Nobody's forcing you. You do as you want. Here's your waiter, here's your chef, here's whatever you want. Just ask for it and it's yours. Very tempting. Very tempting. There's not one person that would ever turn down something like that. כי כן יסד המלך על כל רב ביתו לעשות כרצון איש ואיש. They catered according to every man's pleasure. And you should know it included non-kosher food, non-kosher wine. There was promiscuity. It talks about over there about R-rated topics.
Vegas.
Vegas? If not more.
I thought that all the food was kosher.
There was also non-kosher. They lured. You want kosher? Which one? Bet Yosef? Chabad? What type of shchita do you like? They give it to you. But they try to get you on the wine. Oh, do you keep on the wine? Kosher wine. I have all the wine. They put on the chairs, they put wool and linen, shatnez. One way or the other, he's going to get them. You're keeping everything. You're not even sitting on the chair. Not a problem. All of a sudden, the dancer comes with the sword, and the belly dancer comes out. so you can't protect his eyes. They came with all the angles. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, the author of the Kabbalah, of the Zohar, had students that came up to him and they asked him, Rabbi, for what reason did the Jews deserve such a harsh gezerah, such a harsh decree, that they are total annihilation of the entire Am Yisrael in one day? What did they do to deserve it? We'd like to know. Rashbi replies, why don't you give me the answer? You tell me the answer. You should know it. And the students answered, because they participated in the Achashverosh's feast and they ate forbidden food. That is the reason why the Jewish people had the decree of annihilation in one day. Furthermore, they ask a good question. They continue to ask, why should all the Jews be punished for a few that partook in Shushan? Because keep in mind, there's 127 countries that Achashverosh is in charge of. Not all of them were in Shushan. There was just 18,000. What about the other Jews? Why did they have to suffer for the ones that took part of this feast? So he replied, because the other Jews, they bowed down to Nebuchadnezzar. And he says, and that's forbidden to bow down to an idol. It's asur. Remember, idol worship, avodah zarah, it's one of the big three that you die and you don't do. And Nebuchadnezzar, you know what he had? He had like a idolatry around his neck. Just like Haman had an idol around his neck. He says, why? Bow down to me. Why? So when they bow down to him, they bow down to the idol. To force them to do avodah zarah. So those people are scared for their life. So remember, everybody bowed down to Haman. Haman had that necklace. Everybody's bound down to Haman. Everybody's bowing down to idol worship. Except for who? For Mordechai. He was the only one. But everybody else did the exact same sin. It's unforgivable. And that was the decree. And as this feast was the opening scene of the Megillah, it was one of the first few Pesukim of the Megillah, in reality, it was the beginning of the end. In reality, it was the end of the Jews. And at that very moment of that feast, we mentioned the Midrash in previous classes, I'm not going to repeat it, but the Yetzer Hara went straight up to heaven. He started to prosecute. Here's your people. Look at them now. Look at them eating. Look at them drinking. Look at the environment that they're in. And what happened? What happened? Haman says, Imal ha-melech tov, yikatev le'abedam. He says, if it pleases the king, it shall be written that they should be annihilated, le'abedam. And we know that anywhere that it says ha-melech in the Megillah, it actually hints to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if we read it now thinking that pasuk is the Kadosh Baruch Hu, Imam Melech Tov, if it's good for Hashem, Yikatev la'abedam. Let it be that the Jewish people should be annihilated. And it was decreed in heaven as well. Yes, Haman said it, he decreed it down here, and upstairs it was agreed. Now, as things continue to snowball, let's just tell the story quickly, because we know the story, but I'll give you some good, solid points to keep in mind. Haman gets his way. He gets his decree approved by the king, and he presents his case. What does he say? Vayomer Haman lamelech Achashverosh, yeshno am echad mefuzar umfurat ben amim. There's a nation that is spread out and divided between all your provinces, all over your kingdom. Bechol medinot malchutecha. Vedatehem shonot mikol am, and their laws and their religion is different from everybody else's. It's nothing similar to what we practice. Vedatei hamelech enam osim, and they don't follow your laws. They don't follow your rules. Velamelech en shovel anicham. There's no value to keeping them. You don't need those people in your kingdom. They don't add to you. The king obliges. He takes over his signet ring. He goes to him, Haman, do whatever you like. And he takes the decree and he takes the king's ring and boom, stamps it. And there it is. It's been decreed. And it's irreversible. You can't go back on that. Once the king signs on something, it has to happen. There's no such thing as delete, go back, I take my words back. No such thing. So, it was set. You should know, it says over there, that the language that was used was the language of Pachegan. I just learned it recently from my uncle, Jack Lankry. What's Pachegan? Pachegan was almost like code. Meaning, it was sent out, all the envelopes were sent out to all the 127 countries, but they weren't allowed to be opened. And not only that, even if you open it, you can't understand it. It was written like in a code. But only like before the day of that, the day of the annihilation, they would send another letter that would what? Open up that code and say, okay, this is the nation that you have permission to kill on that day. So they sent out this letter. Haman sent it out. But there's one person that knew what was said over there. It was Mordechai. He knew everything. We learned it in the lesson of Mordechai that he had Ba'al Chalom. Somebody came to him in a dream, an angel came to him in a dream and revealed it to him. And he went over to them and he told them, don't do it. Don't take part of the feast. Don't do it. This is going to be a big nezek in the Shamayim. They didn't listen. They did not listen. It says, "V'Mordechai yada et kol shena'asa, vayikra Mordechai et bgadav." He ripped his clothes and he wore a sack and he put ashes all over him. And he went in the middle of the city and vayitzak ze'aka gedola umara. He started to yell and scream in the streets, a bitter cry. They didn't listen. They didn't listen. They still went to the feast. And why? They wanted to fit in. They wanted to be liked. Who doesn't want to be liked? Who doesn't want to fit in? Anywhere where you are, whether it's Shushan or Jerusalem, you want to fit in. You want to be liked. Human nature. They wanted to be part of the elite Shushanians. The king is inviting me to his castle? Me ve me. Who and who gets to this? It's like when you're getting invited to the White House. Who gets that invitation? They wanted to get integrated. They wanted to get assimilated into Persian culture. They wanted to see, actually, they didn't see it as a spiritual threat. Rather, they saw it as a unique opportunity, a necessary cause. It's patriotic, it's honorary. The king is inviting us. It's a necessary cause. It's going to help the people of Shushan like us Jews. You know how we like to dress things up? When something is wrong, but we make it sound right. But Mordechai knew, and they didn't listen. And now it's been decreed. And as a powerless body of people, once again, a prosecuted nation, with no one to get them out of the mess that they got themselves into, the Jews of Persia go into the default setting of every Jew. Every single Jew, deep down inside of them, has a default setting. When nothing works out for them, not their doctors, not their lawyers, not their money, not their friends, not their congressman, not their president, when all the other external yeshuot don't work, the Jew goes into default mode and knows that only Hashem can help me. They got into that mode. And as soon as they got into only Hashem can help me mode, the Jews began to cry. And they began to mourn. And they started to realize, because remember, Mordechai revealed to them, nobody knows this. Only Mordechai knows in the Jewish people that there's this looming fate, a death sentence that's hanging over their head. And it says, V'tzom ubchi umisped sag va'efe yutzal harabim. They all went out exactly like Mordechai. Imagine you go into the middle of the street in Aventura and every Jew's wearing a sackcloth, crying, and ashes on their head. And as the days and months are ticking away, and at the request of the Esther HaMalka, she's stepping it up a notch. She's saying, he tells Mordechai, Lech knos et kol haYehudim hanimtzeim b'Shushan, get all the Jews that live in Shushan, v'tzumu alai, fast for me. V'al tochlu v'al tishtu shlosha yamim, laila v'yom, don't eat, don't drink for 3 days and 3 nights. Gam ani v'narotai atzom ken, and all the girls that are with me will fast as well. Which is, by the way, this is the source for Ta'anit Esther. Which, by the way, you should know that Ta'anit Esther was in Nisan during the time of Pesach. But Chazal don't want us to fast on Pesach, so they brought it to Yud Gimel Adar. And you have to understand that Esther, she's mustering up all the guts that she can come up with all the nerves to expose herself, to expose her identity, to expose her religion. She's putting her life on the line. She's scared. Fast for me. Pray for me. We're days away from total annihilation. It's all in my hand. And all the Jews are united as one. All connected. In order that they should be matzliach, that she should be matzlicha in her approaching the king. Now keep in mind, biggest anti-Semite alive. He's a villain. He's a monster. He's married. She's married to him. And after a certain period of time, possibly, I don't know exactly how many years together or months together they've been, but she has to come and reveal a big secret. Now you don't keep secrets from a king. Her fear was that she can't even come, because if the king doesn't summon you to come, you're not allowed to come. If you come uninvited or uncalled for, death to anyone. And he already killed one queen. Esther is shaking in her boots. Or maybe those pointy shoes that the Persians wore. And she's putting her life on the line to expose Haman, the villain who wants the queen dead and her people dead. This is intense high dramatics. This is the story right here. If you're really reading it, not just skimming over it, if you're really living the story, this is it. It's all on the line. It's now or never. It's life or death. Not just for her, for the entire Jewish people. And just as we get to this climax of fear, this climax of what's going to be, that our fate is all in the hand of one conversation of a Jewish queen and an anti-Semitic king, comes the turning point of the story. Vayafochu. And right here is where things start to change for the advantage of the Jewish people. What you should know, that this is an incredible energy that is available to us now, right now, this month, the month of Adar. You can change things in your life. Vayafochu. Things can go from one side to the complete opposite for the better on Adar. Believe that. Activate that in your life. Each one of you, if you have something that needs to be reversed for the better, this is the month to really, really pray on it. To really, Chodesh shel Shat Ratzon. 60 yom. 60 days. Because the turning point came when the Jews started to use the most powerful tool that they have. The Jewish people activated the most powerful weapon. The weapon, the tool, the power of tefillah, of prayer. And it came with fasting. And we know we have the whole thing. If you really, 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 really want to be heard in the Shamayim, it's called Tzom Mamon. Call prayer. Tzom, when you fast. Mamon, give a little bit of tzedakah. There's nothing more powerful than that. And they activated it. The whole Jewish nation, Mordechai, Esther, and even the children. Because Mordechai knew the power of the Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban. You know, little kids, when they pray, they're more powerful than all the adults in the room. Because their soul is innocent. It's not tainted. It hasn't sinned on the levels that adults have sinned. So when they pray, it's music to God's ears. So the combination of that takes Hashem's ears and he's, what is that? What is that I hear? And Hashem's head begins to turn kivyachol towards the Jewish people. And he starts to listen to their cry. And he starts to listen to the situation that they're in, and the Yeshua begins to activate itself. And with a series of events, which some will call a coincidence, some will call divine providence, hashgacha pratit. The whole concept of vayafochu, this whole twist of events begins. Again, I don't want to tell the entire story of the Megillah because there's an incredible lesson to be learned over here. But we know that there was a twist of events where, very briefly, there was a sleepless night in Shushan, and Achashverosh gets to see in his book of memoirs that one time he was supposed to be killed by two guardsmen, and who saved him? Mordechai. And just at that moment, Mordechai was around, and so was Haman. And he asked Haman, his number one advisor, what should we do? What should we do to such a man that saved my life? Or what should we do to La'ish asher hamelech hafetz bikaro? He tells him, you know what you should do? Give him your best clothes, give him your best horse, give him even your crown. He went for all. And parade him around the city and say, this what should be done. Unbelievable. And as a twist of events, as Haman is plotting for that to be him, it became the complete opposite. It came Mordechai. And just as Esther exposes Haman, which wasn't easy. Just as she mustered up enough guts to come and tell the king, and she invites him to dinner, and she's walking in and she's shaking. She sees that Haman is so happy. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. She cancels it. She says, can you come back again tomorrow? And they do. And on the second time, she saw that he was vulnerable. He wasn't as happy. He had things on his mind. And he says, now I'm going to expose him. And she exposes him. And the king obliged to Esther. He was open to it. What? My queen, I love you so much. He wants to kill you? I'll kill him. And as he starts to squirm and say, no, Esther, you don't know. You don't understand what I mean. It's not about you. It's like other people. And he falls onto her bed. And the king sees that and says, you want to take my crown? And you want to take my queen? And he gets hung on the tree that he put up for Mordechai. Twist of events. Vayafochu. And at the end, the king takes off his ring and gives it to Mordechai. Vayafochu. And then over time, Mordechai has now the power to get the ring. And he tells him, hey, listen, the king's word, we can't go back on it. But if you want, you can write some letters that say, hey, Jews, on that day when they're all coming out to get you, you know what you could do? You can protect yourself. You can take weapons and fight. And it says over there that they did protect themselves. And the end of the Megillah talks about 75,000 people dying in total and 500 in Shushan. There's a serious amount of people died. Jews protected themselves. They stood up for themselves. 500 in Shushan, 7,500 in the rest of the 127 provinces. And the fear fell upon the people from the Jews and their leader Mordechai. Look what happens. All of a sudden, the Jews were shaking. We're going to die soon. Everyone's going to get us. Vayafochu. Ki nafal pachad hayudim alehem. All of a sudden, they're scared of the Jews. Ki nafal pachad Mordechai alehem. Now they were scared of who? Not of Haman. Now they're scared of Mordechai. V'nafochu asher shletu hayedim hem basonehem. Now the Jews are in control of their haters. Wow. And then the famous pasuk, LaYehudim hayta ora v'simcha v'sason vikar. And the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Vayafochu, what's going on over here? Look what's happening with the Jews of Persia, the Jews of Shushan. But here, that we did a quick little summary of the story, I ask you a question. How did we get here? How did we get to this happy ending? How did we get to this going from total annihilation to be beloved nation and feared? And not only that we got Hashem's face to shine upon us again. We got Harat Panim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How did all that happen? Well, to cut to the chase, the magic formula that switches everything around is the essence of the story of Purim. They listened to their rabbi. They listened to Gdol Ador. They listened to their spiritual leader. Because he's concerned with their neshama, not with their social status and being cool in Shushan, or being cool in Aventura, or being cool in New York City. He was concerned about their neshama that lives forever. And it says over there, וקיבל היהודים אשר החלו לעשות, ואת אשר כתב מרדכי עליהם. And the Jews took upon them as they had begun, and as Mordechai had written unto them. Rabbi, what should we do? Okay. Rabbi, what's the right thing to do? Okay. They started to listen to their rabbi. They started to listen to the Gdol Ador. That was step number one. And then, Kimu v'kiblu ha'Yehudim aleim v'azayam v'nevim aleim. They accepted and performed. They said, what's the Torah? What's written in it? What does Hashem wants from us? Kibelu, they accepted it. V'kimu, and they performed it. Which is the Jews of Shushan activating an old school formula. And this is an older formula. This formula is 1,000 years old. It sounds a little bit like Na'aseh v'nishma, what the Jews said in the desert. Right? After Yetziat Mitzrayim, what was the Jews' attitude? The pure attitude, the essence of the Jew? Na'aseh v'nishma. Hashem, we'll do whatever you want. Later on, tell me the reasoning. I'm here for you. Me and you don't have to explain. People that are really in love, people that have good relationships, most of the time, they don't need a reason for anything. They do because I love them. I'll do it because parents feel this with their children. Parents will do anything for their children regardless of what they do. People that are brand new in a relationship have that. New relationships have that. Die-hard feeling for one another. That's what they had. They had the fire, they had the desire, they had the fervor, they had the connection. Simply put, the Purim formula to success is that the Jewish people accepted Torah shebechtav, Torah shebe'al peh, Ol Malchut Shamayim, which in English translate to that they accepted the oral Torah, the written Torah, and the yoke of heaven. The written Torah is the text. The oral Torah is the rabbis. They know how to decipher. This is a book of codes. Don't think that you know the whole story. That's why there's Jewish libraries don't stop growing. How many rabbis are still writing and writing and writing and writing and writing? It's a code. You have to decipher the code. Each rabbi has a different way of opening it up for us. So we need the rabbis to open up for us, and that's the oral Torah. So they accepted the written Torah, the oral Torah, and the yoke of heaven. Hashem, whatever you want is what we're going to do. And that equates to, what is that magic formula? What's A plus B equals C? Oral Torah, written Torah equals, oral Torah, written Torah, yoke of heaven equals God's divine providence, God's divine protection and blessing. You get Hashem's protection. You get Hashem's blessing. Is there anything better than that? Is there anything better than being blessed by God, than being protected by God? There's no better thing in this world than to be connected to Hashem. And how do you activate it? We just found out. And here we have to stop and ask another question. What is the difference between the Jews of Shushan and the Jews and us today? So we see that the Jews of Shushan, they got into trouble, they did a couple of bad sins, they got huge sins, they got into a situation where, there's no worse situation, death, looming death. They were able to unite, they were able to connect to the rabbi, they were able to connect to the Torah, they were able to connect to prayer, they were able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they were able to bring back God into their life. Those are the Jews of Shushan. How different are the Jews of Shushan from the Jews today? Well, the answer lies in this week's parasha. You should know that we are living the weekly Torah portion. If you ever want to know, if you have questions, if you have something that you need, if you want to get clarity in your life, start learning the weekly parasha. Then once you start to learn it, you'll see that God talks to you through the parasha. I will prove it to you. And in this lesson. Always. It's not a coincidence. It's by a grand genius design. This week's parasha is Parashat Pikudei. It's the last parasha in the book of Shemot. This week we finished the book of Shemot. After the 7th Aliyah, we're all going to say Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. and we move on to Sefer Vayikra. And in order to get today's answer, we have to go back 1,000 years back. Meaning, if the Jews in Persia was 3,400, we got to go back to 2,400 and change. That was the time of Matan Torah. That's the time of the Jews in the desert when they were in Sinai. The Dor Hade'ah, the most intelligent generation to ever live, the generation of the desert. And just to give you a quick understanding of the book of Shemot, you can almost split it into two. The first 5 parashiot talk about the Jewish people going from a family, from a group of 70 people, going into 12 tribes, into a nation, becoming a multitude of people. They become slaves for 210 years. After they become slaves for 210 years, Moshe comes to save them. And it comes with the process with the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea. They go into the desert and they merit to Har Sinai, Matan Torah. And over there, it's like the culmination. Wow, they call it Sefer Geulah, the book of redemption. That's the first 5 parashiot. The 6th parasha, Mishpatim, laws. This is how you act when you're a Jew. This is how you think when you're a Jew. This is how you behave when you're a Jew. Mishpatim. The next 5 parashiot, there's 11 parashiot in total, 5, 1, 5. The last 5 parashiot, Mishkan. Every single week we're learning about this is what we need to build the Mishkan, this is how you build the Mishkan, this is what you do when you bring the Mishkan. 5 parashiot just on the Mishkan. And the last parasha, this week's parashat Pikudei, is when it talks about that finally at the end, the culmination of it all is on that Aleph Nisan, exactly 1 month from today. Hashem's presence comes down and resides in Kodesh HaKodeshim, in the Mishkan. We have the Shekhinah with us. That's the end of Sefer Vayikra. And you should know that even though that we split the Sefer of Shemot into 2, we know in the first half there was slavery, redemption, but there was a lot of sinning. We had the golden calf, which was the Avodah Zarah. There's the Avodah Zarah, just like was in the story of Shushan. We had the Gilu Arayot. When Moshe came down from the mountain, they said, Mesachakim. What's Mesachakim? They said that there was Gilu Arayot over there. Also, let's see if we can find murder in the story of the Egel. There was Shfichut Damim. There was the killing of Chur. Who's Chur? Chur is the one that stood up to all of them. Hey, what are you doing? What did they do? They came and they killed him. Who's Chur? He is the grandson of Miriam. He's the son of Miriam, and he's the grandfather of Betzalel. Betzalel is the 13-year-old that built all the articles for the Mishkan. So that's who Chur was. So there you go. In Chet HaEgel, we had Avodah Zarah, we had Shfichut Damim, and we had Gilu Arayot. Typical to the story of Purim. And what happened? Hashem turned away from the Jewish people for 120 days. For 120 days, we have Moshe negotiating with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He goes and he asks for forgiveness. He goes and he asks to learn the Torah again. And the second, a big process. That finally on Yud Bet Tishrei, on Yom Kippur, he comes down. We were forgiven, and Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second set of Luchot and the Mishkan, an apparatus, a tool that we can use that when somebody sins, you have a way to atone for it. You can bring a korban. You can bring we have also daily sacrifices. So we see that the Sefer Shemot has a lot of similarities to the story of Shushan. However, the Mishkan, which is the end of Sefer Shemot, what was the purpose of the Mishkan? V'asu li Mishkan v'shachanti betocham. It says, build for me a Mishkan, and I will dwell amongst you. Build a place for me, and I will live amongst you. However, there was conditions. Hashem doesn't live in a place where there's no peace. And Hashem doesn't live in a place where there's no unity. So, at the end of Sefer Shemot, when Hashem comes on Aleph Nisan and the Shekhinah resides, that means that the Jews had peace and they had unity. Identical to the story of Purim. And by the way, same time period. Adar Nisan, all this is happening around the same time. The story, the whole story of Purim was in Adar Nisan from beginning to end. It looped around 12 months. Now, there's some more similarities between the Sefer Shemot and the Jews in the desert, as well as the story of Purim. When we said we had Avodah Zarah, they were bowing to the calf, right? Worshipping it. What we had the Jewish people bowing to Nebuchadnezzar and to Haman. Also, we had the Gilui Arayot. They had the dancing around the calf, and then we also had the dancing during the feast. There's a famous midrash that says that the Jewish people, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu came to give him the first luchot, the Torah, he says that they took a mountain, he put it over their head, and he says it was like a gigit, like a big mountain they put on top. It's either you accept the Torah or I drop the mountain on top of you. Who's going to say, no, we're not going to take it? It's either you accept the Torah or you die, right? What happened in Purim? There was the decree, the death over their head. It's either you come back to the Torah or you're going to die. Very similar. You see the story of the Jews in the desert and Purim, very, very close to one another. However, we see that the history repeated itself. It repeated itself in Matan Torah, and it repeated itself in the story of Purim. And how? They sinned, they repented, God came back. Similar in Purim. They sinned, they repented, God came back. Seems like it's something that we can repeat and we can benefit from. That a person can sin. We have the Mishkan, we have Teshuvah, we have Tefillah. You can come back and God forgives and God comes back. This is freeing. This is excellent. We need that in every generation. So we see over here that we have the story of Purim and the story of Matan Torah happening in Adar. The word Adar can be split into Aleph, Dar. Aleph is Alufo Shel Olam. If you take the Aleph and you split it up, it's Yud, Yud, and a Vav. And it says Aleph Dar. What's Aleph Dar? Hashem lives. The last place that we had Hashem living with us is in the month of Elul. HaMelech Hu Basadeh. So how come it's now so popular that Hashem is right now, Aleph Dar? If Adar is here and Hashem is here, just like in Elul, why isn't it popular? Why isn't it that everybody knows that? Because Purim is Hester. Everything is hidden. Everything is hidden. Aster Panai. So what's happening over here? God is with us here just like He is in Elul. The only difference here, He's hidden. And we see that over here, Aleph Dar, Hashem is living with us. And in the end of Pikudei, what do we have? B'mishkan, v'asu li mishkan v'shachanti betocham. Oh, the energy of Hashem living and residing amongst us is here. We have the story of Purim that Hashem turned back to us and now we're all connected. There's an energy for Hashem to get close to us in Adar. There's a spiritual energy available for us on an individual level and on a collective level to attract God into our life. We have an ability to attract Hashem. V'shachanti betocham. What's v'shachanti betocham? They say when Bet HaMikdash is not with us, when it's in the Shamayim, betocham is in the heart. Rachmana liba bae. Hashem wants the heart. Rachmana, the Gemara says, Rachmana liba bae. When He says, take the Torah, attract me to you. Get closer to the rabbis, get closer to the Torah, get closer to the Ol Malchut Shamayim, and all of a sudden Hashem gets closer and closer. And where does He live? In the heart. He doesn't want to live in the head. He doesn't want to be a walking library, that you know all the halachot and all the gemarot, but you're not feeling it. Rachmana liba bae. Hashem wants the fervor of the Jewish people in Parashat, in the Sefer of Shemot, that they gave so much to the Mishkan that they had to be stopped, that they wanted to always give and build and that. They were so hot for God, that the Jewish people got so excited that they even with death looming over their head, they united, they didn't run away. They could have escaped, they could have converted, they didn't, they stayed strong. Hashem says, that's the type of Jew I want. V'shachanti betocham. And then you're going to draw me closer. And when Adar, you think I'm not here, I'm here. Draw me closer. How? Read Sefer Shemot. How? Read the Sefer of the Megilat Esther. It's right there. The formulas are there. Torah shebechtav, Torah sheba'al peh, Ol Malchut Shamayim, Hashem is in your life. Now, how do we know that it's even possible? How do we know that that energy is available to us today? If it's for Parashat Pikudei or if it's from Megilat Esther? From Megilat Esther. Because it says in Megilat Esther, "V'hayamim ha'ele niskarim v'na'asim b'chol dor v'dor." That's where we learned that whole concept, that the spiritual energy just loops around. Well, whatever was available then is available now. Hashem didn't jip us. He didn't cut us short. That wasn't just for Esther and Mordechai and the Jewish people over there. That same energy of Yeshua that was then, it's available to us right here, right now. It's up to you if you're going to draw it into your life. It's up to you if you're going to bring it closer into reality, if you're going to manifest it. So let's go back to the original question. Look at us today. Are we in a vicious cycle that's constantly repeating itself? Did we learn from our mistakes? Did we improve from each generation? Do we have the fervor of Am Yisrael in the time of the Mishkan? Are we united Jews like the Jews of Shushan? Or do we look more like the Jews from the beginning of the story? Going to Achashverosh's feast. Going to that party. Take a second to think. You know the answer right away. Which Jew are we? Did we learn? Did we evolve? Are we better than the previous generation? Are we 2,500 years upgraded in our connection to God? Or is it completely the opposite? What happens to the Jews every single time? Every single generation? There always has to be something scary. There always has to be something scary for a Jew to be a Jew. There always has to be like a rise of anti-Semitism. There always has to be a Hitler or Ahmadinejad. There always has to be some guy that has to scare us into being Jewish. There always has to be like a threat of annihilation. Shebechol dor vador kamim alenu lechalotenu. We never forget that. But it seems like if we don't have that, we don't know, we can't stay connected. Like Moshe called us, Am Kshe Oref. A stiff-necked nation we are. And if we don't have this looming danger, it's as if we prefer to be in Achashverosh's party than connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So as we sit here and we complain about all these anti-Semites that are in the world, and about all these other people that are highlighting us and telling us how different we are from them and how disliked we are, they're just a tool. They're just a tool. Hashem is just sending them so we can be more Jewish, so we can stay more genuine to ourselves and to our neshama and to the ultimate purpose, to our ultimate tikkun that we want to eventually fulfill. That's all it is. However, we got the magic formula. Hashem didn't put us here in the dark. He didn't just put a book in our hand and say, go. He gave us every single key to life. It all depends if you're connected. It all depends if you are connected to the light, or if your head is in the sand. If your head is in the sand, all you see is dark. All you see is doom and gloom. However, LaYehudim hayta ora vesimcha vesason veikar. What does it mean? LaYehudim hayta ora. You know what's ora? It's a Torah. The Torah is light. LaYehudim hayta ora. We have oraita. In Aramaic, they call the Torah oraita. We have the light. We have it. We have the formulas. Come to another lesson, we learn another formula. Come to another lesson, we'll learn another formula. We learned a beautiful formula today. The formula of Shushan. The formula of the Jews in the desert. Come next week, another formula. We have the Orah. We got the light. What happens after Valaytam Orah? Vesimcha. The joy comes. The happiness comes. You know why? When you start to have knowledge, when you start to become smarter and more educated about God and about your religion, your neshama, the invisible thing that's running this machine, this body over here, it gets joy, it gets happiness, it gets fulfilled, it gets its spiritual sustenance. And by doing that, you get simcha. And then it gives you sason. You know what's the difference between simcha and sason? Simcha is when you start something new. Sason is when you complete something. Accomplishment, a sense of accomplishment that you get. That's what you get. Sason is when you start something new. When you finish something. Simcha is when you start something new. And that's the feeling that you get when you learn the Torah. Just when you finish Sefer Shemot, you go to Vayikra, and every year, how's it possible? Every year, a new chidush, a new concept. Every year, the Torah gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Look at the rabbis in the kollels, 70, 80, 90 years old with rosy cheeks, still giving chidushim. It doesn't end. Vikar, honor. The Jews got honor. What gives us the honor? The Torah gives us the honor. Acting like a goy gives us nothing. Never did anything for us. Never did anything for us. It never worked out for us. Because eventually, the minute that the scales start to tip, where we're a little bit more like the goyim, we're a little bit more on the Achashverosh party side than the Mordechai side, what happens? Hashem says, no problem. I'll send you a Haman. I'll send a piece of paper that says you're gonna be annihilated. What is it going to take to get you to wake up? Fortunately for that, and unfortunately sometimes for people, until they don't get a smack in the head from a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a sickness or some sort of a financial stress or some sort of thing, they don't know how to wake up. Hashem always gives you the option to come to the Torah on your own. But some people are so stiff-necked and are so stuck and have so many klipot on them that they're so far from the religion that sometimes Hashem gives them something to knock them on the shoulder. Remember me?
Wake up.
Wake up. You want to come back and talk to me? Your doctor's not going to help you. Your money's not going to help you. No one's going to help you. You're going to get to the point, Hashem, only you can help me. Every Jew has that default setting. The ordinary Jew of the story of Megilat Esther, he taught us that connecting to God begins with us. We have the power to attract God into our lives, one individual at a time. We see that a person can be on completely the other side of Hashem's blacklist and still make it back. He showed us as individual and as a group of people, we can always turn things around. The concept of V'asu li mishkan v'shachanti betocham. It says V'asu li mishkan. Hashem says, create a vessel for me that I can reside in. It's not necessarily 4 walls and a Kohen Gadol and a Levi in Jerusalem. It's actually you. Hashem is waiting for the heart to become a vessel where He can come in and reside. There's no better time to get connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu like Adar. In Elul, HaMelech hu basadeh. Why? To hear us say, I'm sorry. He wants to be very close to our teshuvah. Now He's hiding. Why do we have costumes? Why do we have costumes on Purim? What's the reason for that? It's because the whole concept of Purim is Esther. Everything is hidden. God is hidden. The Yeshua was hidden. Everything was hidden. So we hide ourselves also. To hint at that story, Hashem is here with us now, but He's hidden. And Adar es Simcha, He says, I came so you can connect to me with joy and happiness. Shh! With joy and happiness. Come. Let's get connected. Make the room for me. I'll come in. That's the power of Adar. That's the power that we have in this month. Activate Rosh Chodesh. The reason they call it Rosh Chodesh, it's the head of the month. Check yourself into a shul tomorrow. Close your eyes. Say a heartfelt prayer and say, Hashem, I am creating a vessel in the deepest place of my heart for you to come and reside. Here, please. Let it be a part of me. Let it be part of my life. Let it be part of my family. Let it be part of my community. Let it be a reality of Am Yisrael. Let it be. Because like I said, how close are we to the Jews of Shushan? Oh my God, so far. How far are we from that? But we can't judge other people. We can't look at Israel and say, oh, look at the parliament. Look how they're divided. Don't look at the Ashkenazim and the Sfaradim. And don't look at this community and that community. You can't. Unity starts with you accepting everybody, and then becomes contagious. When you start accepting everybody, everybody starts accepting you, because it's a mirror. The whole thing is midah keneged midah. The ball is in our court to activate salvation. When we constantly say, Mashiach, 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 first look at yourself and say, what are you doing for Mashiach? Don't look at the Chabad rabbi, when is he coming? They always ask him, when is he coming? When you do it, when you bring Mashiach. The ball is in our court. We need it so bad. We need it so bad. We need Mashiach so bad. We need unity so bad. The secret of the Jew is Achdut. The secret of the Jew, the only reason why Hashem came down and rested His presence in the Mishkan is because the Jews had love and unity. Because Hashem can only be in a place where there's love, unity, and peace. And until we don't have love, unity, and peace, He's staying up there. He's staying up there. He has nothing. He doesn't want to hang out with a bunch of dysfunctional kids. So the ball is in our court. Instead of asking questions, take upon yourself how you're going to become more like the Jews in the desert than before building the Mishkan. How you're going to be like the Jews of Shushan that got connected and nothing could sway them from being connected to their rabbi and being connected to the Torah and being connected to the yoke of heaven. And that Be'ezat Hashem, that the love, peace, and the unity will bring Hashem into our lives. And come into our lives and come into our reality, and we can activate Parashat Pekudeh, and we can activate the Megillah, and that we should have the Pesukim read. Ubechol medina umedina ubechol ir ve'ir, in every state and every city, Makom asher dvar melech v'dato megia, where there's all the law of the land. Simcha v'sason laYehudim, there should be joy and happiness for the Jews. The whole world should be filled with happiness and joy for the Jews. Mishteh ve'yom tov, that will celebrate a yom tov every time for the Jews in the world. Ve'rabim me'amei haaretz, and all those amei haaretz, all these anti-Semites, all these people that hate Jews, all these people that are just, are living with the Yetzer Hara as their best friends. Mityahadim. In those days, they became Jews. They started to act like Jews. Imagine. They started to put on the peot, the tzitziyot. They started to walk around the street. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. They started to talk like Jews. Why? Ki nafal pachad haYehudim aleim. All of a sudden, they were scared of the Jews. Why? Hashem is on our side. That's what happens when Hashem is on our side. The Gentiles are scared from the Jews. We don't want them to be. It's just by default, that's what happens. That's what happens. We're not scary people. We're friendly. The have a nice day, don't worry, be happy, that's the Jew when he's connected to God. And that's what the pasuk says in the Megillah. And it says, "Vanafochu asher yishletu hayedim hema besonehem." And we shall come to the point that everything should be turned upside down for the better. That the Jews will be controlling the ones that were hating on them. And as the last pasuk of the Megilat Esther says, Ki Mordechai Yehudi, Mordechai the Jew. What made him the Jew? The way he dressed. He kept kosher. His midot, the way he looked. He was a true Yehudi. Mishneh LaMelech Achashverosh became the second in command to the king. Remember what Haman was? Now, Mordechai is Vegadol Yehudim. He was one of the biggest people at that time to the Jewish people. Veratzui lerov echav, and he was beloved and accepted by the multitude of his brethren. Doresh tov la'amo. You know what was his character? You know what the Megillah wants to tell us about that rabbi that lived for 400 years, Mordechai, a Yehudi? He always was seeking good for the Jewish people. And that's what we leave. That's what the Megillah leaves us off with. The Gdol Hador from 2,400 years ago wants to teach you a lesson. Seek good for your fellow brother. Seek good for your fellow Yehudi. And the Be'ezat Hashem, we all merit to revealed miracles and a constant connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that Be'ezat Hashem, we have a month filled with simcha, filled with Yeshuot, and that each one of us get their personal Yeshua. And Be'ezat Hashem, we will merit to see revealed miracles in the following Chodesh of Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Shavol Lenu Tova B'od Chodesh. שיטו לבכם לחילם, פסגו אמנותיה, למען תסבו דור אחרון. שהשם מברך אתכם ושמח אתכם. All the best and Shabbat Shalom.
Amen.